Prosperity Mindset Part 3.
Then Jesus answering said unto them, Go your way and tell John what things you have seen and heard, how that the blind see, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, to the poor the gospel is preached. Wow, isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing that the only solution to poverty is the gospel? What is the gospel? The gospel is good news. And the gospel to the poor is that they should no longer remain in perpetual poverty. Poverty has never been the intention of God. God has never, planned poverty for man. For what? For what? Poverty came as a result of the fall. Immediately Adam and Eve fell, and were driven out. The fall was actually sin, and they were driven out of the Garden of Eden. They started experiencing poverty in its entirety. And unfortunately today, people need their minds to be renewed, because right now poverty is now a thing of the mind. And when I'm talking about this poverty, I'm talking about every aspect of poverty. There's spiritual poverty, there's physical poverty, there's poverty of the mind and poverty of the soul, and every form of poverty. The gospel is the solution, for eradicating, complete eradication of poverty. So let's turn to the gospel. Because in the gospel we find the way. Remember, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And Jesus said, I have come, the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come that they may have life and have it in abundance, to the overflow. That is actually prosperity. Prosperity is so good. You don't see negativity being attached to prosperity. No. Especially, prosperity, godly prosperity has a whole lot of positive vibes around it. That is what it is. And I cannot even begin to open that up or overemphasize it. What it is that God's intention, God's vision and plan for humanity is to live in perpetual prosperity, not in abject poverty. The sooner, the better for everybody. The sooner we discover this truth, the better for everyone. In fact, the world, the earth has enough wealth to go round. I hope you know that. Over 8-point-something billion people living on the earth today, yet the earth has enough to feed every human being, as much as they need to be fed. So we're not saying that, I'm not trying to tell you that, God has sent us here to suffer in poverty, to remain in abject poverty and all that. No. Even when Jesus said, the poor you always have, is because of the mindset of every human being. Some are twisted, some are laid back in such a way that they need those minds to be renewed. When you renew your mind and understand your place, who you are, who God has made you to be, you find out that you have no business living in abject poverty. You have no business. And when Jesus said that, it was as if it was talking to Africa. Why is African countries, suffering and battling abject poverty? Why is the continent so impoverished? And yet, the continent has abundant wealth. Is because of our mindset. Mostly, 99.9% of Africa's problems is in the mind. Leadership has to be addressed. Leadership. Why do we have the poorest form of leadership? Because people are not thinking out of the box. People are not using their minds. People don't have their minds renewed in the gospel. The gospel is the greatest, the best good news you can ever hear. Because in the gospel you find God's way. In the gospel you begin to align to the will of God. And when you discover the will of God, you see provisions scattered all over the place. Looking at Acts chapter 4 verse 34, you see where the scripture says, neither was there any among them that lacked. The disciples never lacked. So who is telling you, who is the preacher that is telling you that so and so were poor and impoverished and they lacked? They never lacked. Even when Jesus sent them forth, he sent his disciples forth. He said, when they came back, he said, did you lack anything? They said, no, we didn't lack anything. And when Jesus had any need for anything, he solved it, because that is God's original intention, to meet every need, spiritual, physical, and otherwise. When John the Beloved was praying for his congregation, he said, beloved, I wish above all things that you may prosper and be in health, even as you're so prosperous. Same way the psalmist, made a statement of fact. When he read in Psalm 23 verse 1, he said, the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. That's the implication. That is the result of the Lord being your shepherd. You will never lack. I shall not lack. That's the result of it. That is why God remains our shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd. My needs are met. God has brought wonderful people around me. There are people that, I just bless God for their lives. Because it's not really about, people don't care about how much you know. You can know so many things and yet you don't matter to them. You know what matters to people? The way you care, how you love. Love has to be shown. If you are living in abject poverty, how can you show that love? No, love is action. Faith is action. Hope is action as well. You see, so these things are all intertwined together. It's a process. So my advice to you, I'm not telling you, when you go to church and all that, don't leave your brain outside. Go with your brain. That is why God gave you the gift of having a brain, so that you reason out everything that you are being taught in the church. Don't go like a moron and everything they tell you no. Act like the Berean church. They will go and search out to know whether Paul, all those things that Paul was saying, whether it was true. Because they needed to do their due diligent research. That is what I'm telling you and I. That is why channels like this are set up to bring you to transformation, to bring you to a realization, a spiritual realization of what God's original intention is all about. God does not want you to remain in poverty. Remember, poverty is a curse, is a byproduct of the fall of man. It has nothing godly about, there is nothing godly about poverty. It has sin all written around it. Yes, take me to anywhere, say whatever you want to say. The gospel, according to this gospel, there is no poverty in heaven. Have you known that? It's all about abundance and provisions. Even we were told that the streets of heaven were made of gold. Gold is not cheap. Gold is a costly commodity. So my dear brothers and sisters, share this video, share it. Remember, subscribe to our channel, for greater content. There's so much on this station, and I love you so much, and I keep showing this love both by the messages we put out here and also by what we do to show up.